All right, Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Ruach Kodash. I'd like to say double honors to my teachers, the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. And I'd like to also say Shalom and salutations to the elect that's out there preaching His word in truth and sincerity. I'm the brother Shaquat, one of the brothers from the branch of Great Millstone, Montreal. I'm back with another lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to be getting into the famines, man. Because there's a famine that's getting ready to come to the western part of the world, man. When I'm speaking about the Americas, North America, you know, specifically the United States of America, man, because that's pretty much the focus of prophecy, right? America, the United States of America. That's the place that's prophesied to be destroyed. That's the place that's known as Babylon the Great in the scriptures. And that's also the place where the greatest deliverance is going to take place, and also the greatest destruction is going to take place. It's going to be America, man, right? But in the scriptures, when you read the scriptures, it doesn't blatantly say America, right? But America is found all over the scriptures, but it's hidden. It's code, it's hidden under code names, man. Like some of them being Babylon the Great, Nineveh, the Valley of the Shadow of Death, and various other names and those are just a few that come to mind right now, right? But America is pretty much the most popular, the most famous place in the scriptures, man, right? And that's where the focus is, you know? That's where the focus is. The focus is in America, man, right? And something that's part of a prophecy that's going to come to America is famine, man. And famine, starvation, right? Matter of fact, let me start here in the book of yep, Ezekiel 38 and verse 11. It says, "And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates." Right. So this land of unwalled villages is speaking about America, right? But a point I wanted to emphasize in this precept is the fact that it says, "I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely." Right. So that's pretty much the mindset of the Americans, man. They're dwelling they're safely, man. And they're at rest, meaning they are comfortable. They are comfortable. They're living deliciously, because when you take a look at the American lifestyle, this precept pretty much sums that up. It's a carefree lifestyle, right? And what I mean by carefree is that, they haven't really, the average American doesn't really go through an an immense, how do I say this? They don't really go through something that somebody in Iraq will go through, right? Waking up to no food, going without no food for a week, even longer. Having to prep and make your own food, having to find food, right? Because that's what the eastern side of the world, for the most part, that's how they live. They live a more rougher lifestyle, right? But America, they're at rest. They dwell safely, right? It's a consumer based society, right? It's a society, that's pretty much built to satisfy your every need, man, right? To the highest level, right? A few things that come to mind is Uber Eats, being able to order food whenever you feel like it, right? And they can do that in excess, right? Indulging in all sorts of whatever your flesh desires, you could feed it, you know, at any given time, right? That's dwelling safely, man. That's dwelling at rest. That's dwelling carefree, right? But that's gonna be that pattern of living is gonna be altered very soon by Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, by the Heavenly Father, because the Lord is gonna bring judgment upon America, and a part of the judgment is the fact that there's gonna be a famine sent to America, right? To where people are gonna starve to death, man. People are gonna have to fight to survive. And this is something that's never heard of, because the way this land was founded is that it was founded to pretty much make your day to day easy for you, man. Make everything easy, right? That's why in the book of Isaiah 47, and I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, "Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground, there is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate," right? So coming down is America being brought down from its lofty estate, because America is is lofty, is high as far as kingdoms go. It's the Lord said that America is the golden cup. It's a golden cup, man. In Isaiah 13, it speaks about America being the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency. So America is pretty much the standard. America is the standard of living. It's the standard of a society in this time, right? But that's gonna be brought down, and it's gonna sit in the dust. It's gonna sit in confusion, right? That's what that dust symbolizes. It says, "O virgin daughter of Babylon," right? So that's how we know that this is not speaking about ancient Babylon. It's speaking about another Babylon, a virgin, which means untouched, a pure, unspotted virgin, which is symbolizing how that America has not been touched by any war, first and foremost, but also by any major plague, right? And it says daughter of Babylon, and a daughter of someone is someone that comes, if you're a mother, your daughter comes after you. So this is not speaking about ancient Babylon, speaking about another Babylon, which would come after, which is America, right? But it's gonna be brought down to the ground, meaning it's gonna be destroyed, right? And it's no longer gonna be called tender and delicate, right? Like we read in Ezekiel 38, the lifestyle of America is pretty much that of a tender and delicate one. Well, guess what? That's gonna be altered by Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, and there's a reason for it, because of the iniquity that's in that land. Matter of fact, I want to get a real quick quote, something that just came to mind. So yeah, hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Right. So good times. That's what that pretty much summarizes the American lifestyle. Good times. And good times create weak men. When you're always living it up, always indulging in the flesh, you get weak. you know? And when you're weak, you can get wicked fast, man. You can start doing things that are out of the norm. And in the case of the Americans, you know, they're not thinking about the Most High at all, man. Right? They're constantly thinking about how to feed their flesh. Right? So let's go back to the scriptures. Let me get an example of just how harsh the famine is going to be that's going to be sent to America. Matter of fact, let me get this first. Ezekiel 5 in verse 16, it says, I will send upon them the evil arrows of famine, which shall be for their destruction, and which I will send to destroy you. And I will increase the famine upon you and break your staff of bread. That's right. It says, so will I send upon you famine and evil beasts, and they shall berave thee, and pestilence and blood shall pass through thee, and I will bring the sword upon thee. I, Yahweh, have spoken it. Right? So these are the words of Yahweh Ba'ashem El Shai. The staff of bread is going to be broken, meaning these grocery stores, the transportation trucks that deliver these foods to the grocery stores, that chain is going to be cut off. Right? And it doesn't take long once those trucks stop filling up the stores for people to, run out of food to buy, man. Right? And that's going to lead to a famine. That's going to lead to a famine. And once that famine comes, just to paint an idea of how gruesome it's going to get, this is 2 Kings 6 and verse 25, right? And scriptures speak about how that is worse. You don't want to die by famine because that's a slow and agonizing death. You rather a fast death by the sword. Matter of fact, let me get that. In the book of Lamentations 4 and verse 9, they that be slain with the sword are better than they that be slain with hunger. Why is it better to be slain with a sword than to be slain with hunger? Because when you're slain with hunger, it's a breakdown. You're being broken down in stages, right? Just like how they go into a fasting state. When you fast, you're going through stages of cleansing. But you have to recover from those stages. Your system is being broken down to be built up again. That's what fasting is supposed to do. And, that's the positive aspect of fasting. But the famine that's going to be sent, it's not going to be to benefit the people. It's not going to be to build you up because it's a punishment. You're not going to have access to food, right? So that process of being broken down is going to be continuous until you die. And it's a slow and long process, man. Right? But you feel each and every stage of that process. That's what makes it worse. Rather than being slain with the sword, where you're put to death right away, man, and you're not being tortured, so to speak, right? For lack of better words. So Lamentations 4:9, it says, they that be slain with the sword are better than they that be slain with hunger. Why? Because it's better to go out fast than slow. It says, for these pine away, stricken through for want of the fruits of the field. That's right. So let's go from there to the book of 2 Kings 6. And this is just one example that the scriptures paint of how bad and deadly a famine can get. All right. And there's countless other scriptures, man. You know, but this is just one of them. Or countless other examples, right? 2 Kings 6:25. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. Right, so they were selling asses' heads, a donkey's head, and dove's dung, dove's shit. That was the commodity, right? And those things, they're not nutritious. All right, verse 26. It says, and as the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, help, my lord, O king. And he said, if the Lord help not thee, when shall I help thee? Out of the barn flour or out of the winepress? Right. So if the Lord is not with you at this time, or at the time of famine, there's nothing else nobody can do for you. And that's why we do what we do. You know, that's why we serve the Lord. That's why we serve the Lord, man. Because we know that that's gonna be our only help and protection in that time. Right? You know, we're trying to get in the good favor of Yahweh Shemashai now, so that when that time comes, the Lord could look upon us and deliver us, man. Right? But if the Lord is not with you, you're pretty much done. Just like this, just like the king said here, verse 28. And the king said unto her, what aileth thee? And she answered, this woman said unto me, give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son, and did eat him. And I said unto her on the next day, give thy son, that we may eat him. And she hath hid her son. And it came to pass, when the king heard the words of the woman, that he rent his clothes, and he passed by upon the wall. And the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth within upon his flesh. Right, so this famine was so bad to where mothers boiled their sons, man, their children. Right? So this is how deadly a famine can get, and will get, to the point where people are going to be eating people, man. We see that in these dystopian movies, right? The Walking Dead, that show. People actually eat people, right? But for a mother to eat her own child, you know, what kind of situation are you in to have to, you know, to be in the mind to eat your own child, right? You know, but that's why the scriptures say it's better to die of the sword than to die of famine. You know, because in a famine, when you're hungry and you haven't ate for days, maybe months, man, you know, you'll do anything to get food in you, anything to survive. But that's what's coming to America, man. You know, so I'm pretty much gonna end it off there. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to say, call Halayim La Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem, Racha Kodash. I'd like to say double honors to my teachers, the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. And as always, shalom and salutations to the elect.